Hi, you're watching Saturday in the Woodworking Shop with Andrew Pitts, where we talk things woodworking. You know, this old Craftsman radial arm saw was the first tool I ever bought in my workshop. I've had this since 1976, 39 years, and it served me really well. It's accurate. It cuts square, it doesn't fall out of adjustment. It's really done a nice job, but it's underpowered and it doesn't have enough reach for some of the planks that I need to cut. I can easily bog the saw blade down, and I'm using a -5 degree hook angle on my blade, so it's not an aggressive blade. And I can still bog it down very easily, or sometimes the blade actually gets pinched into the wood if the wood has a little reaction stress and the saw comes to a screeching halt. So I need more power, so I'll be able to power through that without the saw stopping. It'll be safer. And I need more depth so that I can do some of my really wide planks. So let me just demonstrate what I'm talking about. I've got a piece of walnut here that is about 14¼ inch. I need to cut off the bad end of this anyway. You see, I'm not trying to be aggressive with that cut, and it stopped twice going through that board. So I'm going to solve this finally. I've had my eye on the old DeWalt model radial arm saws for years, and so I'm working on ordering a original saw 3512 with a single phase 3 horsepower motor. It has a 24-inch arm on it, so it'll be able to saw my widest plank, and it's all cast iron construction. Seems to be a really nice saw. I've seen them in the shows. Well, my original saw, radial arm saw, arrived today from the freight company. I picked up this dandy lift a few years ago. Boy, what a lifesaver for a job like this. Now that the saw is placed approximately where I need it, I went ahead and worked on the electrical part, because that really requires getting in here and drilling holes. I needed some space. Here's the control box that comes with the saw. It's got a relay setup with a thermal overload and a transformer for a low voltage power from the on-off button. And I went ahead and installed a disconnect. This is an air conditioning disconnect, which simply makes or breaks the entire circuit. This is a 3 horsepower motor, and the label on the motor says 17 amps rated load, but the instruction book tells you to use a 50 amp circuit breaker with number 8 wire if you're less than 60 feet from the panel, and running it down through a conduit into the floor and then down below. I'll show you how I route that to the circuit breaker panel. I didn't want to pull down my entire false ceiling to install this cable, so I decided what I'll do is I'll staple it to the bottom of the joists, since there's nothing up here to grab the cable, so don't have to worry about that. Okay, we're all tied into the main service panel with a 50 amp breaker. Let's go ahead and give this the acid test. I'll connect the disconnect. Make sure we're locked up there, got clearance on the blade. Here goes. Sounds good. I went ahead and bolted down my big 4x6 supports, and I bolted the frame to the supports. Now, the big reason I use these 4x6s is I want to distribute the weight of this saw over several joists. so I don't see any sagging in my joist. And also it raises the whole thing up a little bit, which is a little better on my back. I've also started to hook up the dust collection. I already had a dust collection outlet coming up through the floor for my last radial arm saw. So all I did was I put the blast gate right down there on the fitting, and then attach a 90-degree elbow, and using a flexible hose, which I think you can maybe see down here, I'm going to come on up and use my original dust hood that I had with my last saw, and see how that works. I think it'll work fine. If it doesn't, I can make some modifications. Also on that blast gate down there, I think I'll devise a little handle so I don't have to bend over to operate it. Now my dust collection system is metal, but every once in a while I have a rubber hose to connect two pieces, and so I do some electrical bonding. You can see the right there, I've riveted a ground wire that goes from the elbow and then up onto the dust collection hood. The table itself is not parallel to the actual arm of the saw. So what I've done here, I've got a Allen wrench chucked up in between the collars that hold the blade onto the arbor, and you can see right now that Allen wrench is pretty far off the table. I can put the end of my comb underneath that Allen wrench, between the table and the Allen wrench. But now when I pull the motor on out, I get to the point where the Allen wrench is just about touching the table. So I know that, I can't even begin to get the comb in there. So I know that I've got to raise the back of this table. But they've got these adjusting bolts, these little jack screws. You can see one right there. Here's one, and here's one. You can see the jack screws in the front of the table are way up high, but the ones in the back are way down low. So I think that's the culprit. And go ahead and get those adjusted. Get this table parallel to the arm. Okay, so to make sure that the measurement's accurate, I'm using a 90-degree square to keep my angle, or my Allen wrench, perpendicular to the table. And I'm putting a 20 thousandths feeler in here just to make sure I'm not actually leaning the Allen wrench on the tabletop. And if I can get to the point where I can easily fit that 20 thousandths feeler all the way around, I'll be in good shape. Now I need to make the blade perpendicular to the table. You can see the square is touching up here on the blade. Make sure I'm in the gullet. And down here you can see daylight. So you adjust the blade perpendicular to the top by removing the little pointer. There's a couple of Allen screws under here. You loosen them up just a little bit, and that allows you to rotate the motor a little bit and get things lined up. Gives you just a little bit of wiggle room there. And next I'm going to adjust the travel to be perpendicular to the guide fence back here, so that then I can go ahead and cut my groove through the guide fence. So the way you do is I put a square on the table and bring my saw out all the way until my blade is just touching the square, and then run the saw back. And I know it's hard for you to see, but I've got a 1/16 or so of daylight back here, which means this arm needs to adjust a little bit that way. And the way I'm going to do that is to adjust these set screws here on the lock, and that'll push the arms over a little bit. The last check I'm going to do is to see if the blade is tilted one way or the other, which would cause heel, which would mean that the back teeth would pick up on the wood a little bit and make marks. You want the blade to be perfectly parallel to the cut. So the easy quick check is to just use a straight edge or a square and check the blade, and it looks like it's pretty good. The acid test will be when I do a cut, and if I see tooth marks on the back of the cut, I'll make some small adjustments to this. So that could be, something I'll just work on with time. Well, here goes the first cut with the saw. Sounds good. Doesn't seem to want to bog down at all. Dust collection seems to be working right. So the next step will be making the extension tables. I'll put that in a future video. I hope you appreciate seeing me set up this new saw, and thanks for watching.